this fall doesn't appreciate paying a high, ridiculous tax on tennis shoes to send the kids back to school. I think we need to go the other way, level the playing field on that. Now, I would rather have the shoes manufactured here, but again, that's not going to happen until we fix what's wrong with our economy, and that is...
But we can't compete with their labor market with what they get paid.
But most corporations don't want to compete with their labor market.
They will. We got the smartest...
But it's because of the efficiency in the United States.
Right.
Most companies go overseas, that's their biggest complaint, is the labor they get.
Right, it's a labor issue, the high cost of labor in this country. Because
No, not here. I'm talking about the labor they get overseas.
It's cheap.
It's cheap, but it's inefficient.
Yeah.
Well, it isn't.
We can do
It's
it.
very inefficient.
We can do it better, more efficiently, and
that's
cheaper.
right.
Well, yeah, I agree.
If we can convince them that we're not going to slap them with higher taxes so they can't compete with the competitors across the pond, that we don't have regulators come in every other day shutting them down, and then we don't sue them at the end of the year for looking at us wrong. I tell you, I've talked to a whole lot of small business men and women across Kansas the last couple of years, and they all tell me the same thing. And those are the things that if their taxes are going to go up, or they're going to have to pay more for their employees' health care, the only thing they can do is fire somebody and use the money from that to pay. And it's not rocket science. It's just numbers, making it all.
Is there any way we can put a break on EPA? I mean,
We're trying. We've sent legislation to the Senate. Well, we practically do that, but again, you have to keep in mind we can't do anything proactively right now because the Senate won't act on it.
Right. Well, then you keep stopping it.
Yeah, that's right. I guess I want to reset everybody's expectation that you can stop stuff when one body is maybe agrees with you of like mine, but you can't go on offense and really change anything because we can't make people do what we want them to do.
Just something, in a small household, you cut corners where you can. So that means that if you go and you need to buy pencils for school, you don't go pay $3.50 full price. You wait till they go on sale and so on. Why doesn't the government do that? Because I know they don't. When we were in the Army, for example, I remember being told, be careful with that box of toilet paper, whatever. That box was $25. And that was 25 plus years ago. And we looked at each other and went, you could go to the commissary and get it cheaper.
Well, I think
these are small things, but just like in a household, you start with these small things, and like when I was first learning how to budget and how to cut corners, you started with these small things, and then you learned and you grew from there. You don't necessarily jump to the biggest thing.
Right.
Like I didn't know to shop around for car insurance until years later. I learned all that stuff as time went on.
Right.
That's such a simple approach, and I don't understand why something so simple, as I'm sure your office is probably furnished by the government, right?
Sure.
And I'm sure that you're...
we have a budget that comes from, and they cut us 5% at the beginning of the year, 6.4 or something in this last. But what family in America isn't making that kind of adjustment in their budgets? I mean, that is nothing.
It's a no-brainer, really.
That is a no-brainer. And what you suggest is exactly what's happening for the first time in history. We're actually cutting something. And it really is because of, I think, the mandate that came with the House this last fall. Even though we can't really go on offense and fix, like you said, the big things, which are tax reform and entitlement reform. At least we can nibble around the edges, and that's why, 25% of discretionary budget in discretionary spending. Well, that piece of the pie is only 20%. But if you cut that 20% by 25%, you're making, you're taking baby steps. Sooner or later, we'll get to the real drivers, the 60% that is Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, and we'll get to save that. Because right now what people don't understand is, I'm afraid they don't, Medicare's bankrupt in 8 years. Gone. So, I don't appreciate people saying, well, you can't touch that. Well, who in here plans to live beyond the next 8 years? I do. I'd like it to be there. We've all paid into it, so you have to talk about it. We have to have that grown-up discussion that